Good evening. My name is Brian. I'm an organizer with the American Union, and tonight we're going to go through our Town Hall 2022 Campaign for Peace. The Campaign for Peace is a Gandhian Satyagraha campaign to bring Americans together around delivering solutions to our political, cultural, and social problems. Before we get started, I would like to start these off with the preamble to the United States Constitution to remind us of what our goals are as Americans. And so you're welcome to unmute if you like and join me in reciting the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That was the roadmap that the framers laid out for us back in 1787. And we've drifted away from it. If we want to guide America to a better place in the 21st century, we have to have a destination in mind. We have to know what it is that we want to accomplish. And so over the next 40 minutes or so, I'm going to go through our presentation in four parts, talking about Satyagraha and a constructive program, the overlapping solutions, the state and national political strategy, and then calls to action. Between each section, we'll take a break for questions. Just as a brief introduction, again, my name is Brian. I served in the New Hampshire legislature for 3 terms and got a chance to see how the sausage was made from the inside and realized that the political system just wasn't working. And so as I studied Gandhi and some of his students, Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, I saw that there was a way that their nonviolent organizing techniques could be used to address America's problems. And so from that, the American Union strategy was created. So in 2022, we have an opportunity to stage a nonviolent revolution. This would be a Satyagraha campaign. The word Satyagraha is usually translated as soul force. It is using nonviolence, using love to defeat an opponent, but to persuade them, avert them. And a lot of the issues that we find ourselves dealing with in America today are the same ones that Gandhi dealt with in India back in 100 years ago. That his country was divided into Hindus and Muslims, the way that we're divided into Republicans and Democrats. And it was done on purpose by the people who ruled the country, who wanted to pit the people against each other so they wouldn't cooperate and show that the power that the people had. So we get to these turning points in history. Their violent revolution is possible, but it's not inevitable. We have the opportunity to offer a better path for America, a better way forward. And we can do that by recognizing the humanity in all of us. That can triumph over hate. When Gandhi set off on the Salt March in 1930 to illegally make salt and draw attention to the injustice of the British ruling over his nation, he said, Satyagraha works only in this manner. It arms people with power, not to seize power, but to convert the usurper to their own view, till at last the usurper retires or sheds the vices of a usurper and becomes a mere instrument of service of those whom he has wronged. And that's the goal of the American Union of Swing Voters, not to seize power, but to persuade Congress, but to persuade the American people that by working together with a shared view of humanizing everyone, by serving each other, we can move America forward into the 21st century and win us a better social contract. The Gandhian constructive program has 3 legs. There's a lot of interconnecting problems in our country. And while a union of swing voters is necessarily devoted on, it sort of focuses on the political issues, there are more problems than that. 3 main legs are political problems. We need to reform the system so that it serves the needs of the people. Right now, it doesn't. There are far too many people in this country that are suffering. There are far too many special interests that have oversized influence on the political process. And so we need to reform the political process. Social conflicts as well. As we talked about a minute ago, Republicans and Democrats are polarized, pitted against each other. as part of a unified set of solutions, we need to address these social problems as well. And then there's the cultural problems. To move this country forward, we want to encourage individuals on a path of self-improvement. Just like our country, we can be better if we want to be, if we make that choice. Within the political reform, Martin Luther King obviously was much more familiar with America's problems than Gandhi was. And so he provides a framework for seeing this as a moral crusade. In his Beyond Vietnam speech that he gave 1 year before his assassination, he said that our only hope today lies in our ability to recapture the revolutionary spirit, to go out into a sometimes hostile world, declaring eternal opposition to poverty, racism, and militarism. With this powerful commitment, we shall boldly challenge the status quo. And the status quo in America is broken. It needs to be challenged. And so a union of swing voters can deliver the most influence with the least amount of people by declaring eternal opposition to poverty, racism, and militarism. Addressing those interconnected evils is done through our crowdsourced legislative package, the Blueprint for a Better America. It ends poverty with universal basic income. It ends mass incarceration with major criminal justice reform, and ends the endless wars by downsizing the military and reforming some of our foreign policies. When you RSVP'd for this event, got a lot of the details about the military downsizing and the reforming our foreign policies. I'm sure that we're all in agreement on the need to do these things. I'm not trying to persuade you that each of those policies is necessary, because I think you already know. Instead, I'm trying to persuade you that there's hope that we can actually influence Congress and the direction of this nation by working together. The second leg of the constructive program is social reform. Martin Luther King challenged us to recapture the revolutionary spirit. And for Americans, that spirit is encapsulated in the preamble. These are our common political ancestors, Republicans and Democrats. It all goes back to the Constitution itself. And so to heal this country, to bring this country together, to break down these partisan barriers, we can roll back the clock to the thing that we all have in common. Build a shared experience. Companies do team building exercises. Amish do barn raisings and things like that, because working together as a team to solve problems builds a sense of community. And so the American Union offers a way that frustrated Americans across the political spectrum, across the country, can work together as a team to address our problems here in America. Social reform also works to strengthen communities and families and to restore our faith in government. Government has addressed a lot of problems. Government has also caused a lot of problems. We, the people, can take back the power and steer it in a way that benefits the American people. Cultural reform, on the other hand, America's culture has become very inward focused, especially in recent decades. The 1980s and Gordon Gekko claiming that greed is good. We've seen that influence in companies on Wall Street. As individuals, we've seen a trend towards overconsumption. If you got Netflix, binge watching TV shows, things like that, overconsumption is standard. So a lot of instant gratification going on in our culture. We want things now. We want them our way. It's about us. There's a focus on self instead of a focus on the community. And so these are all interconnected problems that need to be addressed to move this country forward. We do that through a shared self-sacrifice, a monthly fast for peace on the 15th of each month. A moral crusade requires sacrifice, whether it's sending people off to war or a financial sacrifice. It requires putting some skin in the game. Shared self-sacrifice of a fast is a way of offering something that is free. It doesn't cost any money to participate in fast. It's good for our mental and our physical health. Again, going back to address some of these social and cultural issues, helping us be more resilient, practice self-control, and to help bring us together as a nation. This is not a new idea. Many of the founding fathers used days of fasting to bring us together. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, after the Boston Tea Party, he wrote a resolution for the state of Virginia to hold a day of fasting, to stand in solidarity with the people of Boston after the British had blockaded their port as a result of the Boston Tea Party. Abraham Lincoln tried the same thing during the Civil War to bring Americans together through a day of fasting. And so we can do the same thing again in 2022. The Fast for Peace is done in the Gandhian tradition: no food, just water for a 24-hour period. He recommended a dinner-to-dinner fast when he used days of fasting to unite Hindus and Muslims for their common cause of Indian independence. But whatever 24 hours works, their own decision. So breakfast to breakfast, dinner to dinner, 24 hours in a day. The important thing really is the intention that we bring to it, that shared intention that we want to work together, that we have a common goal of promoting peace. So the overlapping solutions, how do we address these political and social and cultural problems? And again, the crowdsourced legislative package, the Blueprint for a Better America, addresses the interconnected evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. And there's about 50 different policies that are contained within the legislative package. You can read it on the website. And it's important to stress, this isn't some silver bullet. This is not intended to solve all of America's problems and all right, let's just do this one thing and then we're done. Just like the preamble says, how we strive for a more perfect union. This is a step in the right direction. This is a blueprint for a better America, but it's not we can always improve, both as individuals and as a nation. And so if we're going to address the problems of the military-industrial complex, we have to recognize what problems they are actually solving. What purpose do they serve in our economy? And the biggest thing that they do is they push money out into every congressional district around the country. If you think of how the water cycle works, right, where the evaporation from lakes and rivers and stuff goes up and then maybe comes down as snow on the mountains, and then it melts and it flows back down into the rivers and lakes, and it cycles around that way. And so in America, money tends to pool and collect, maybe in California and New York, in the big cities. And so the military industrial complex redistributes it out into the rest of the country. It flows back down into the cities. So universal basic income can replace this function that the military industrial complex is serving, so that we will push money out into people's hands across the country, but so that empower them to do peaceful and productive things instead of building weapons of war. In the West, we've got a lot of missile silos that are not essential to our national defense, and yet those states are very committed to keeping those silos open because they're good for the local economy. That servicemen come and they're gonna be down in the missile silo for 24 hours. They stock up on food and snacks and things. Get meals at the restaurants and all of that, and it's good for the local economy. So if we're gonna close these things down, we've got to make sure that those local economies, got to give them other ways to thrive. The other part of what the military industrial complex does is it addresses poverty. It's sort of a jobs program. You may have seen a chart of America's productivity and wages, and how they followed, kind of increased at the same rate through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And then at the early 1970s, they decoupled, where productivity kept going up, but wages did not. And so it was right around the same time that the federal draft was ended. And so then we needed a volunteer military. So by creating, having more people in poverty, gave them a good economic incentive to volunteer. Again, the military industrial complex, it feeds the economy because the economy needs additional dollars in circulation. As it grows, as the population grows, and so we do that by borrowing money into existence to grow the economy. And these were necessary to do that. And so we can fix this system as part of addressing a lot of these other problems. That money that we are diverting into the military industrial complex can be used to address a lot of other problems and issues in the United States. And so under the Blueprint for a Better America, we have universal basic income. This is the American Union Jobs Program. Now, this isn't a jobs program in the traditional sense. It doesn't make Americans into employees, but instead it makes us independent contractors. Universal basic income would be an unconditional $300 a week for adults, plus $100 a week for kids, to go out and be better Americans, however you see fit. It's as a reminder of our duties and responsibilities as Americans, the things that we're supposed to be doing in the preamble. So go out and establish justice or promote the general welfare, help make America better, and by ensuring everyone has enough money to participate in the economy with universal basic income. That's sort of what Ralph Nader, I think, was getting at with his consumer empowerment. Poverty opens people up to economic coercion. Right now, you have a lot of people that depend, for example, on Google for their email services, I'm doing this slide presentation with Google because all these things are free. And so that's the most economic choice for me to make, to take advantage of these free services, even though I'm really giving up privacy and, the information being collected on me is the product that Google is really pushing. And so by ensuring people have money to make other choices in the marketplace, will empower consumers to really be able to stand up and not be taken advantage of by services like that. The universal basic income will be paid in a digital cash, digital assets, not debt. This is another part of the overlapping solutions of addressing our economy. And if you'd like to know more about it, you can stick around. We'll be doing another presentation on the universal basic income program after this. And we have an economic discussion every other Monday night at 8 o'clock as well. This solution, though, the American Union Jobs Program, points back to the social reforms of reminding us that we're all Americans, that we're all in this together, we're all on the same team. It's not just about ending poverty, but instead strengthening these social bonds, and then addressing the cultural issues as well, with a focus on duties instead of a focus on rights, asking ourselves, reminding ourselves, what is it that we owe each other? What are our responsibilities to each other? And addressing these cultural problems of self-centeredness. Universal basic income promotes social and cultural reform in a couple of other different ways. You might be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. For people to thrive, to be successful as humans, first, our survival and our security needs need to be met. It's hard to make long-term decisions if you're concerned about, do you have enough food to eat? Where you have a safe place to sleep at night. And so universal basic income can provide that stability to address those first few rungs of Maslow's hierarchy, so that then we can work our way up and establish more stable relationships, friendships, be more trusting, and build our self-esteem and our self-actualization. We have a lot of human potential that's being wasted in this country as a result of poverty, and universal basic income can really help address that. Economic insecurity, it drives an awful lot of problems. This idea that there's not enough to go around, so that we've got to protect everything we have. People have a mindset of scarcity. And so when you hear people talking like build a wall and keeping out immigrants, and this idea that there's just not enough, and we've got to fight to protect these things, when in fact America is a very, very prosperous nation, and the policy decisions that we have made to allow 37 million Americans to live in poverty Those are policy choices and they're wrong. We can do better. We can look out for each other by unionizing as voters and enacting universal basic income. Universal basic income, I mean, let's be honest, right? That if you give everybody a regular amount of money, some non-zero amount of people are going to make bad decisions with it. And so the idea that it should still be universal and unconditional is a statement of faith in every human being saying, look, I trust you to make good decisions about your life. And if you screw it up, that's okay. I'm going to trust you again next month and the month after that. So there's maybe sort of an aspect of unconditional love to universal basic income, saying that we're going to look out for each other and make sure that everyone has the resources to meet their basic needs. This will further strengthen families. The costs of childhood poverty are immense. We can fix these things. We can address these things. And while a lot of these issues around poverty could be addressed by other means than universal basic income, it's really that universality, the recognizing the humanity in everyone that is essential for also addressing the social and cultural issues. The other parts of the legislative package, the ending the mass incarceration, the ending the endless wars, also serve to reinforce this message of seeing the humanity in everyone. Our judicial system is very broken, is very dysfunctional. And so by refocusing on establishing justice, our first duty under the preamble, our military industrial complex and our way of glorifying the military has a profound impact on society in a couple of different ways. I was reading an article recently about the shooting in Uvalde in Texas, and the members of law enforcement who were all proud that they had military equipment and their SWAT as a SWAT team and things like that, but they weren't prepared to actually go and engage the shooter. That military glorification of the idea, exacerbates that sort of situation. And likewise, the mass shooters themselves, by glorifying the military and this idea that killing makes us strong, that it's acceptable, puts that idea out there. And so by shifting away from it, by addressing militarism, we can shift the culture as well. Recognize that even if violence has to be used, that it's a failure that we failed to do, to negotiate, to talk things out, to resolve things non-violently. So violence should be used with regret, not as the go-to problem solver. If we want to see everyone succeed as Americans, right? We want to see every American thrive. Then we've got to make a good faith offer to Congress. We've got to create a way for the 535 members of Congress for them to succeed too. We're not going to heal this country by committing ourselves to seeing people defeated. Instead, we want every person to be the best that they can be. And so again, this is the power of Satyagraha, of persuading with power, persuading power to get back to the Constitution, to these duties, to address these societal problems. And so the blueprint for a better America is that good faith offer. Then the question becomes, how do we get this to the president's desk? As the framers intended, every 2 years, we get a chance to hold Congress directly accountable. Right now, the way that it works is in all 469 congressional races this year, swing voters are picking the lesser of two evils, which are the candidates, the Republicans and Democrats, which is more tolerable. And by unionizing as voters, by creating a new metric for casting our votes across the country, we can change this paradigm by tying a very specific action, a very specific set of demands to how we vote. And now this legislative package has more than 50 different policies in it. Nobody likes everything in it. Nobody's supposed to like everything in it. It will require compromise, but this goes back to addressing our cultural issues. Compromise means you're willing to give something up in order to get a better outcome than you would have gotten otherwise, right? If nothing was done. And so the fast is a physical representation of a willingness to compromise. The fasting and compromise are two sides of the same coin, willingly giving something up. And so that is, that's how we can break the paradigm. And sort of in the same way, you know, that the way that a union has power is by being willing to go on strike. And so it will be hard for, you know, some diehard Republicans or Democrats to, you know, consider walking away from their party. Unless you're willing to walk away, you don't have any leverage. You know, you can do is make polite suggestions. So to really take back the power, we've got to be willing to walk away from